there's so much that I want to say, and I probably should have written some of this stuff down, because I'm not going to get through all of it, and it's not exactly all directly connected, so it's going to be more than one video anyway. But what I wanted to talk about this morning, with my little comb over, is that it's just formulating, all right? So bear with me. I was discussing it with my wife this morning, and I'm just gonna try to get it out there. It has to do with eroticism and the reality that conformist culture has distorted eroticism. It has a distorted version of sexuality that is really not intimate at all. It's a performed intimacy, and that's a key component to all of this. It's inauthentic in its performativeness. And when I say conformist culture, you could also say straight culture. But when I say straight culture, I don't mean just all heterosexual people. That's not at all what that means. In fact, there are many people who I know that experience attraction to the opposite gender that I would not call straight. And there are many people that I know that experience attraction to the same gender or some other alternative mode of sexuality that I would not call queer. I would not call non-conformist. The conformist energy, the straight energy, is the energy of fear. That's what I'm talking about. That's why it conforms. It's afraid of deviation. But it only perceives deviation because it itself has set up a rigid standard. Something that must be conformed to, that is considered the norm. And this is in contrast to non-conforming energy, non-conforming perspective, queer perspective, which again doesn't have to be gay in our understanding of it. But by queer and by non-conforming, I mean it sees that life is free. Life does not conform. This is a great joy of life, is the freedom of its expression. It doesn't limit itself. There is not one way that is deviated from. So in effect, from this perspective, there is no such thing as deviation, because there is no norm to be upheld and therefore deviated from. In the non-conformist or queer perspective and experience of life, which again is just seeing that this is how life is. Life doesn't have a standard. Life expresses infinite diversity and variety. It has no limitation. So there's nothing to deviate from. In the non-conformist perspective, there is no taboo. Because again, taboo is that which is outside the norm, right? It's that which has been put in this other category. It's been othered. And you can call that shadow, whatever you want to call it, but it's been othered. That's what taboo is. So from the non-conformist perspective, there is no taboo. Everything just is, and is a part of life, a natural part of life, a natural expression of life. Nothing is seen as dangerous or foreign or even exotic. There's diversity, absolutely. Absolutely, there's diversity, and there's other culture, and there's stuff that I have not personally experienced from this perspective, but it's not in this category of alien and unfamiliar and other. It's just different self. And how amazing that is to see, how different the self can be, how varied. Just how diverse, limitless in its diversity. But it's all self. So there's none of this othering that happens. And so for the nonconformist perspective and experience and energy, eroticism is genuine intimacy. Eroticism is that which is a deepening of familiarity. So the erotic is found in an increase of knowing this self, this other self, this different self, but still self. The erotic is experienced through a deepening intimacy, an increased vulnerability, and that is bottomless. The knowing of self is infinite. So there's this absolutely expansive, endless space in which to move into and explore and increase intimacy. Intimacy can only increase. Familiarity can only increase. And erotic is experienced by the increase of familiarity, by the deepening of knowing, by this continuous stripping away, becoming more naked, more vulnerable. There's a trust there. That which is erotic is imbued with trust. I feel safe. I am choosing to feel safe. And therefore I am becoming naked with what is. I am becoming naked with you as you are with me. And we know one another more and more deeply. But eroticism for the conformist energy, the conformist perspective, the straight culture, is tethered to this otherness, to the notion of taboo. And this is seen throughout the myths that pervade heteronormative culture. The myth that men and women are so alien and so different from one another. And that's where their attraction lies, is in their difference, in almost their seeming inability to understand one another, their inability to get along, as if they were speaking different languages, as if they had entirely different cultures, as if men were from Mars and women were from Venus. This myth that upholds the notion that heterosexual attraction is based on otherness and difference. That sexuality itself, that attraction itself, requires it. There's all kinds of psychological mumbo jumbo that would have one believe that the only way to experience eroticism or sexuality is through this othering. It requires mystery. That in fact, it is killed by familiarity. And this is fetishization. And I'm not using any of these words in a way that is intended to shame or judge. This is just meant to be a realistic discourse about what can be observed. And then we can decide if we like it or not, if this is what we want to do or not, if this is sustainable or not, if this feels good or not, actually. This eroticism, the eroticization of otherness, the requirement for taboo, anything that is outside the norm, is what leads to the fetishization of marginalized groups. So from the conformist perspective, gay people, people of color, people of disability, differing ability levels, whatever, illness, anything that deviates, right, from the norm is itself a form of taboo because of its deviation. And in that deviation, there's a sexual attraction. And this is how countless marginalized groups have described as representation is gained, it starts out in, and it's hard to get it out of, the fetishization stage. So people who have not seen themselves represented in media start to see themselves there, but it's in this weird way where they're like lusted after for their weirdness, right? For being so different. They're so, exotic and other. And it's challenging to get out of the fetishization trap. To get straight culture people, conformist culture people, to see you as same, as just other self, because they don't even see themselves that way. And I'm wondering if there isn't a lot of pushback against, equal rights and representation for all peoples, because what we're doing, what non-conformist people are doing when marginalized groups that exist in the taboo, according to a conformist perspective, come out of that dark corner and say, actually, we belong here. Actually, we're not outside the norm. We're just part of everything. What's happening is straight cultured people, conformist culture people, are losing access to their experience of the erotic. When we bring ourselves out of the dark corners and declare ourselves not taboo, they're losing access to sexual gratification via our fetishization. I'm not saying this in a judgmental way. I'm not trying to shame anybody. I'm saying I think that there's a big reaction happening there because of that. Subconsciously, people are not aware that they don't understand there's another way to experience the erotic. There is a different way to experience sexuality, and it's in a deep selfing. For straight culture, for conformist culture and perspective, the erotic and the sexuality of a human being is experienced in foreignness, in unfamiliarity, in this sort of dangerous other that I can't understand because they're so different. And there's this tremendous push-pull, right? There's a wrongness there. Oh, thank you. And it's performed. It's a performed sexuality and a performed intimacy. There's no actual intimacy there. It's all wearing an identity. It's all a cloaking. The excitement lies in the othering. And so if you're other, I must also be other. It doesn't work for one to be other and me to be self. It just doesn't happen. It cannot happen that way. It is always a mirroring, even if we're not aware of it. If we are othering someone, we are othering ourselves. We are objectifying ourselves. We are making ourselves object rather than subject. And so you have this sort of then like out-of-body experience where everything is in the head. It's all this fantasy. None of it is grounded in reality. The conformist perspective is not grounded in reality. It's all up here. It's all fantasy. It's all imagined. Nobody is real, including me. And the increasing visibility and voice of the nonconformist perspective is threatening that. It is forcing the conformist energy to step into the light and to stop pretending and to be real for once. Because eroticism experienced through the nonconformist lens and energy is intimate. It is real. It is, I am me. I am myself. And you are you. And we are both experiencing, being, and we don't need fantasy. In fact, the most erotic, exciting, sexually charged thing is to be fully present in this moment with what is. And having no idea what that really means. What could happen? Anything could happen. Nothing could happen. It doesn't matter what happens. What matters is that I am here and you are here. And I know that I am here and you know that you are here. And we are witnessing, we are experiencing. That's hot. There doesn't even have to be what is traditionally considered, sex, for this experience to be deeply intimate and charged and expansive. And in my deep knowing of self, my experiencing of self, self without borders, self without boundaries, self without definition, my being myself purely, which means there's nothing for me to point to, I'm just being me. There are no clothes on me, right? I'm not cloaked in anything. I'm not using anything to cover up the nakedness of my pure being, which ultimately holds on to nothing. There's nothing here that I can point to as defining me. It is only in my direct experiencing of being self that I know myself. I sense my own presence. So I am doing that. I am being fully naked, fully vulnerable before you. And as you are doing that before me, there's the true intimacy. And there's an endlessness to that depth of experience. Nothing is taboo. The sexually charged is not what is hidden and taboo. Nothing is hidden. That's the point. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is separate. Nothing is othered. Everything is self. Everything is integrated. Everything is brought in. It's not even brought in as much as recognized as already being here. Recognized as belonging. Whatever arises is recognized as belonging here. And there's just a springing up of love and appreciation for everything that arises. So there aren't these categories of light and dark. We might recognize negative and positively charged, but they're not pitted against each other. One is not categorized as bad and the other as good. In fact, they're all welcomed. Whatever arises in this moment is welcomed as that which is perfect for this moment. So if that's positively charged and if it's motion, then that's welcomed as perfect. And if it's negatively charged and if it's inertia and it's heaviness, then that's welcomed as perfect for this moment. And they are treated equally. They are received as equals because they are. Because you see that. Anyway, just sort of a quick thought that I wanted to record. Because I believe that we, all of us, regardless of culture, have experienced indoctrination into the conformist energy. And wherever we are at in our deconstruction of that, we are invited to let go of this other definition of eroticism and sexuality and step into what it can be, which is a deepening of self, a deepening of knowing. Eroticism that is not reliant on unfamiliarity, but that deepens in familiarity, that which can continue to increase. And can you see how one is not sustainable and the other one is? But it's not a right and a wrong. It's just one of these is not sustainable. One of these really doesn't work. The other one does. One of these is not really supported by nature. It's allowed to be. And actually, in its allowance, in nature's allowance of conformist energy and experience to exist, it is demonstrating its own nonconformity. Nature is so free, so unlimited in its expression, so non-conforming that even the idea of conformity is allowed to exist. That's incredible. It actually demonstrates the opposite. But it does take effort. It takes effort to sustain this illusion. And anything that takes effort is not sustainable. So this is crumbling. The conformist energy and everything that encapsulates is crumbling. And one of the things we are being asked to look at right now is this version of eroticism and sexuality and relationship in all its performativeness and deception. And how do we let that go? Can we just let that go and accept the deeper, truer experience of the erotic? We're going to reclaim that word. We're going to redefine. We're going to expand. It becomes an expansive definition now. Not limited to this like tiny little surface sexual charge that is just the urge to get off. This is a deep desire for connection in which there is the capacity for immense release, but it's a release that deepens and expands, not a release that just, off the surface, like blows some dust off. This is different. There is an infinite depth to this. There is infinite desire for this infinite depth and continuous deepening in the continuous knowing, the increase of familiarity, that which can expand endlessly. That's all I got for now. I love you. Take it easy.